Today's video has been sponsored by Prosperous Universe, a massively multiplayer online space trading simulation that you can play for free in your web browser. Start running a space company where you can set up raw material production, or find profitable trade routes, or dabble in stocks, currencies, and commodities. Find your own niche to exploit in the single, persistent online world where everything is player-driven. All of the tradable materials are made, purchased, or sold from or to other players, as are the cargo vessels used to ship it all around. Engage in meta gameplay and get into player alliances that support each other, or get into trade wars to corner a market. You can play at your own pace with no pressure to log on every day, and free players can enjoy the game for as long as they want. If you really love the game and want more out of it, then the Pro license subscription is available. So if you're the sort of person who enjoys optimizing production, problem solving, or just seeing a line go up, then try out Prosperous Universe today at the links below in the description and pinned comment. Sci-fi is full of cool spaceships doing cool spaceship stuff, and sometimes exploding, but did you ever look at it and wonder, why does it feel like everything is only military? Where is all the trade, all the logistics, all those massive ships we see in real life that keep the world running? Today's video is all about exactly those vessels, because they're just really impressive and cool, but often overlooked, especially the tiny niche where they're used to support military operations. Think about how many ships, trucks, and aircraft are involved in the business of trade, be it bulk cargo like ore, fluids like oil, or even natural gas, and of course, containerized cargo. Even during war, this stuff continues, though then it becomes a massive strategic target like all the convoys of Liberty ships crossing the Atlantic in the Second World War. But much of sci-fi is still far, far below this, with what feels like 90% of it being focused on either giant warships or teeny tiny fighters. It's just odd that all the civilian traffic is barely present. There should be tons of it at major locations, but what shipping ships we see shipping around are a definite minority. But they are not totally absent. Let's start at Star Trek, which has some. Like off the top of my head, I can think of the cargo ship in the first season of Enterprise, and there's obviously the Kobayashi Maru. The best example is Deep Space Nine, since it's a mostly civilian location at a key choke point for trade, so we see and hear about plenty of cargo ships toing and froing there. Plenty of stories come out of those things. There's even Cassidy Yates, who is a whole recurring character captaining one of those vessels. Out of the two big sci-fi franchises, I think Star Wars does a far better job of representing these vital ships, since across all its eras there's something waving the banner for logistics. Yes, there's the numerous light freighters I'm on record as disliking, but there's many actual logistics vessels around. In the original trilogy, there's the iconic GR-75, which is a really amazing looking ship with those rough edges cradling the cargo containers within. The sequel trilogy has the Baleen, which a prominent set piece takes place within, among other ships. The prequels is where freighters and transports really shine. Not only are there plenty of civilian spaceports shown with all sorts of stuff going everywhere, but there's the Trade Federation, a group whose entire existence is centered around logistics. And to that end, they have massive ships just for that. Sadly, we don't ever see them actually doing that since they're militarized by the time of the movies, but that by itself is an interesting subtopic we'll come back to later. Another little subgenre of these trading vessels that actually does show up a good bit is the small-scale space trucker, well represented by Elite Dangerous, the X series, or No Man's Sky. There's even actual space trucks in sci-fi, which I think pop up because they create the same feelings as a road trip. You know, stopping at service stations, heavy traffic, stuff like that, which is a lot easier to relate to than sailing is. Plus it adds a distinct feeling of Americana to things. Futurama in particular loves doing that, to the point of also hitching a ride on a space train at one point. Mass Effect holds a special place in my heart, so I'm mentioning it. To be fair, it does also do a great job of representing civilian trade. You often visit cargo ships themselves, be they in space or crashed on a surface somewhere, and you can see them tootling around various locations, especially in the second game, which has you visit many civilian hubs. That game went the extra mile too, because it also included multiple missions inside cargo handling facilities, showing that it's not just the ships themselves that are important, but where they dock and unload. unload. These facilities are the other side of things that rarely show up, even in franchises that do include a lot of cargo ships, so it's great to see Mass Effect use them, even if it's just as backdrops for the other stories going on. I think it really adds a lot to the world as a whole. It makes it feel real. Now it's time for some of the really great examples, and naturally the biggest and best just has to be EVE Online. The entire bedrock of this game is player-driven trade and player-driven logistics, all enabled by a huge amount of cargo ships of many sizes, from small-scale haulers to big-ass freighters, with specialized versions of all of them. The haulers have advanced variants for running blockades with cloaking devices, or operating in dangerous locations with stronger defenses. Those big freighters can even come with jump drives in order to go between systems without needing to use the choke points that are stargates. And there's even more for industrial or logistical needs. What this shows is just how much variety can come out of including these ships, tacking on extra abilities to allow them to move stuff around. There's more you can do here with arming them too, but as I said, we'll talk about that later. Nothing really can beat EVE for its trade, but I think Star Sector does a really good job of coming close to it. Cargo fleets are a constant sight in the core systems, carrying food, people, supplies, fuel and raw materials all over the place, because no single location has everything in abundance. It's relatively simplistic, but it is a good representation of how supply and demand drives space traffic, and in turn creates gameplay and story opportunities around attacking or defending it. But very importantly, the game makes supplies and fuel a core feature of your fleets. You can try to get by going port to port using the cargo space your warships have, but you're much better off using extra ships dedicated to it, especially when you have any expensive to run capital ships, and even more especially when you venture out to explore. And all these lessons are what Daniel from Spacedock learned when I got him to play Star Sector, and off he went exploring without any tankers in his fleet. Predictably, he ran out of fuel far from the core and barely scraped his way home on a combination of sipping vapors out of lucky finds, aid from salvagers, and abandoning some ships he found. Then he did it again, but this time by running out of supplies because he tried to bring home a huge pile of salvaged ships he found, then accidentally fell into a black hole and had to scuttle a bunch of stuff before salvagers again saved his bacon. So if you noticed an increase in logistics vessels in the SOJOURN's YouTube channel a while back, this is why. All of this is also exactly how real militaries operate. Logistics is what keeps everything running, and without it you're going to run into some real trouble, and navies doing this at sea is no exception. In fact, they have what I think is a really underappreciated element of all this, which is underway replenishment, also known as replenishment at sea. This is done by special vessels that run up alongside things that need supplies and go through a whole complicated procedure of sending lines over and rigging up cables between the moving ships. They can't do a solid dock like you'd imagine in space because of wind and waves, so the cables are used to carefully haul over supplies and even fuel pipes for keeping non-nuclear vessels going. And of course, aircraft can also do the fuel transfer thing, and it's even been done with a car to set a world record. I think some of the reasons we don't hear about these unrep ships much in fiction, outside of like this bit in The Expanse, is because people don't realise this is a thing, which is a bit of a shame. To be fair though, there are plenty of in-universe reasons for it to not come up much. Like in Star Trek, where the tech level is so high, there's not much reason for it to exist. But when it does crop up, it is really cool. Elite Dangerous actually has one of the most amazing emergent gameplay features come out from all this in the form of the Fuel Rats. These are players that will come and refuel your ship if you get stranded, no matter where you may be in the galaxy. There isn't any incentive for this, players just do it to help people out. Sci-Fi tech also means unrep can be inverted, with military ships supplying something to civilians, just as Battlestar Galactica does since it has water purification systems. As I mentioned earlier, another element to all this is taking existing cargo ships and slapping guns all over them. And I don't mean the light freighters that seem to come like that off the production line for defense against pirates while having very little cargo space. I mean proper armed merchantman sort of stuff, including Q ships. No, I don't mean steamy fiction about Q and Picard. Get your mind out the gutter. I mean otherwise normal-looking cargo ships with concealed weapons, designed to surprise and fight back against marauding attackers like U-boats. In practice, they weren't great, were ethically dubious, and like, why bother hiding the guns if it's just going to be attacked anyway? And Sci-Fi has a ton of these visibly armed cargo ships, especially in factions that cannot build or afford proper military vessels, or ones who need military ship designs right now so they convert civilian stuff to military. But for nailing this vibe the best, I gotta highlight Star Sector, again, and Nebula's Fleet Command. As mentioned earlier, the former has tons of logistics ships, but basically all of them have some variant that's been gutted by pirates or fanatics into some type of combat vessel. The biggest of these are a pirate-modified super freighter with huge guns and launchers all over its skeletal frame, and the Ludic Path's insane gutting of a super tanker to turn it into a bizarre battle carrier thing. As for Nebulous, the OSP there does a more rounded job of its civilian refits, but the funniest creation they made is the Moor line, since even all of its containers are also militarized into decoys and missiles. How can you not love this thing? You know what, looking back at things, I think I was wrong about Sci-Fi lacking these ships. They are actually pretty common when you start to look for them, it's just that some settings and stories pay a lot less attention to them, which is still a bit of a shame, but one that's more understandable, because these ships really are kind of vital in making a world seem more like it's a real place with connected events going on in the background. You can support Spacedock by joining our Patreon, where you can get our frigate, fighter and carrier design reference books, as well as 1 week early access to upcoming videos. Thanks to our supporters, and thank you for watching.